Good morning, and happy Easter. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society. We are grateful to gather on this beautiful morning, both in person and online, for a time of inspiration, reflection, and connection. Whether you join us today with joy in your heart, weighted with burdens, or searching for meaningful connections, we are glad that you are here. I'm the Reverend Diana Smith, the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm a somewhat tall white woman in my mid-40s with short, curly, white and brown hair, wearing purple glasses, a blue dress, and a mostly white stole, standing at UUS's pulpit at the front of our sanctuary. Our sanctuary is filled with people of many ages on this Easter morning, and through the window walls of our sanctuary, we connect to the outdoors where it is a beautiful, warming spring day. As we gather, we give thanks for this land and all who have cared for it over the centuries, particularly the Kickapoo, the Iowa, the Sauk and the Meskwaki, and the Oceti-Shakawan nations. As people of many ages, genders, races, sexual orientations, classes, abilities, and health statuses, we know how important it is to come together as a radically welcoming spiritual community. As Unitarian Universalists, our faith expresses our core value of love through how we agree to be together and to support each other. We are guided by the shared principles and sources of our living religious tradition. And this morning we celebrate Easter. And as we do so, we'll reflect on how we search for truth and meaning and explore the ways we can promote justice, equity, and compassion in our relationships. If you're newer to our congregation, we invite you to learn more about us after the service. For those who are here in person, you can talk with the greeter in the atrium. And for those who are online, there's a link to a visitor form in the YouTube notes that will let us connect with you. And so, as we begin, I share Easter again by the Reverend Linda Susan Ulrich. We live inside paradox. Humans generally don't like to admit it. We much prefer tidy, stable, comprehensible, logical ways of getting through the day. But paradox is woven into the fabric of this particular universe we inhabit. Light is both a particle and a wave. Imaginary numbers describe the math of physical phenomena. Love and grief are inextricably linked, as are rage and sorrow, suffering and compassion, life and death. Time itself is both linear and cyclical. Each person's life traces a single arc, yet patterns emerge and reemerge. Fear always seems to return. Goodness knows terror finds its way back into the news. We always seem in need of help to roll back big stones that block our way. Yet we also come back to the Alleluia, even if its absence has gone on far longer than the 40 days of Lent. We raise each other's spirits when our sacred places seem empty. We anoint each other. Today, we engage in a demanding faith that asks us to love the next world into being today. We are joyful that we have considered all the facts. We practice resurrection. It is Easter again, my friends, and you are surrounded by a multitude who wish you well. And so let us join our voices in song as we sing Lo, the Day of Days is Here. Alex Xinghui and our choir will lead us.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Yes, we are singing the words of number 270 if you have your, 269 if you have your gray hymnals along. If you're looking in the hymnal, though, don't look too hard at the music, because we're not singing that music. All right. I'm Alex, the music director. Xinhui is next to me. We have 12 colorful Easter eggs behind me. And so let's all rise in body and spirit as we sing together. Lord, the The day of days is here. Hallelujah. Festival of hope and cheer. Hallelujah. At the south wind's genial breath. Hallelujah. Nature wakes from singing death. Hallelujah. Fields are smiling in the sun. Hallelujah. Loosen streamlets seaward run. Hallelujah. Tender blade and leaf appear. Hallelujah. 'Tis the springtime of the year. Hallelujah. Lo, the Easter tide is here. Hallelujah. Music thrills the atmosphere. Hallelujah. Join you people all and sing. Hallelujah. Love and praise and thanksgiving. Hallelujah. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Emily Johnson, worship associate and member of UUS. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a 30-something white lady with chin-length brown hair and a blue shirt. As Unitarian Universalists, we light a flame within a chalice as a symbol of sanctuary and safety, to unite us in our worship and to remind us of our ongoing search for the light of truth. Please join me in saying our chalice lighting words as Jonah lights our chalice. Oh, I forgot to light the candle for Jonah. Sorry, Jonah. All right. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the wonder and mystery of this great gift. So let us now kindle the flame of our liberal religious heritage and renew our covenant of mutual love and care. Love is our doctrine, the quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer, to dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, and to serve those in need. This we promise, this we covenant, with life and one another. Each week, we light a candle for justice and healing to acknowledge our interdependence with the natural world and with all members of the global community, especially the most vulnerable. We light this candle so that we may not be numbed to injustice and trauma, but rather find strength, courage, and love as we work in solidarity with others for liberation, justice, and healing. Together, we create resilience and hope. Today, as we light this candle, we're particularly mindful of the many people who fall victim to unregulated guns, both those we hear about on the news and those we don't, and the people, many of them young, who are fighting for freedom from the fear of being next. As I light this candle, let's hold a time of silence to listen to our hearts and bodies, or perhaps to lift up prayers.
Good morning. My name is Nick Kaplan. I am the grateful director of Lifespan Religious Education here at UUS. I am a shorter, non-binary person with short gray and brown hair. And I'm here to tell you about how our story begins. 2,000 years ago, in the Middle East, there was great upheaval. There was great social and political unrest. Many people were very poor. A great empire called the Roman Empire was waging war and conquering countries throughout Europe, the Middle East, and northern Africa. The Romans had come to the areas we now call Israel and Palestine and had conquered the people there. They replaced the government and economic systems. Some of the people who lived there were happy with the changes that came with the Roman Empire, and others weren't. Some people benefited. They got better jobs and liked the new society. Other people found that they were poorer and that the Romans told them they couldn't live the way they wanted to live, and they couldn't engage in their traditional religious practices. People from many areas had been protesting the Romans for decades. This was a different time, when things moved much more slowly than they do today. Most people traveled by foot, or on camels or donkeys, and nothing moved very fast. The only communication was by talking to people and writing letters, so protest movements took a long time to build. One of the ways the Romans became such a formidable empire is that when there were protests against them, the Romans reacted harshly. They threatened people, and sometimes they would kill people, so others would be too scared to protest. The Jewish people were one of the groups affected by the Romans. Many Jewish leaders over the years had resisted the Roman Empire, although some Jewish leaders wanted to work with the Roman Empire. And into this time came a teacher. This teacher traveled around the country talking with people about their concerns, their fears, and their hopes. He was particularly good at teaching people through stories. Many of the stories he told had multiple meanings, so that he could encourage people to resist the Roman Empire without the Romans knowing what he was saying. The stories also helped people with their everyday struggles. The teacher was very concerned with the needs and struggles of people who were very oppressed, people who were poor, who were minorities, who were outcasts, who were sick, or who were treated particularly badly by people who had power. He was particularly angry when he saw people being hurt or taken advantage of, and he was particularly interested in exposing the actions and nature of systems of oppression. As he traveled around the country, people began to follow him. Some of them only followed his words or would come to see him when he came to their town. As time went on, more and more people began listening to the teacher. From him, they learned about how to care for each other. From him, they also learned about many ways to resist the forces of the empire, to resist systems of oppression. And with that, I'm going to pause this story so Reverend Diana can tell you the beginning of another story.
Is my mic on? Oh, might help if it's actually at my mouth. All right. So, in the story that Nick began, The teacher was helping people learn about ways to care for each other and how to resist oppression. Now, there are many ways to resist when people who are powerful are trying to tell people that their lives don't matter, that they aren't important, or are doing things that hurt people. There are many things we can do that help people gather together, find hope, and protest. Sometimes resistance to oppression can look and sound like a big protest march, but it can also look and sound like telling stories, making art and music, and much more. And that brings us to today's storybook that I'm going to share with you. Now, if you're out there, you're going to be able to see it up on the screens. If you're right here, I have a little book that I'm going to read from. Our book is called Rabbiness by Joe Impson. And there we go. All right. Rabbit liked doing rabbity things. Rabbit liked hopping. Rabbit liked jumping. Rabbit liked twirling his whiskers. Rabbit liked washing his ears. Rabbit liked burrowing. And Rabbit liked sleeping. Rabbit also liked doing unrabbity things. He liked painting, lots of colors, and making music. This made Rabbit very happy. It made him so happy, all of the other rabbits caught his happiness, and he filled the woods with color and music. And with that, I think Emily is going to take us back to our other story, and I'm going to come back to this one in a little minute.
And now we return to our first story. As you remember, 2,000 years ago, a teacher came into our story. As more and more people began to follow and learn from the teacher, the Romans became worried about him. Finally, after a few years, the teacher arrived in one of the largest cities and began teaching. He knew he was going to be captured, so he went and prayed to God about what he should do. After he prayed, he knew he had to continue being a teacher and a leader of the resistance. When the Romans captured him and put him on trial, some of his followers remained loyal to him, and some turned against him. They were afraid of what would happen to them if they kept supporting him. In the end, the Romans tried to shame him by stripping him naked and making him march through town while people called him names. And then the Romans killed the teacher. After he was dead, the followers who remained loyal to him placed his body in a tomb because they loved him and wanted to honor him.
All right, and now I have a little bit more of rabbitiness. One day, Rabbit disappeared. The other rabbits were very sad. They couldn't find him anywhere. The woods were quiet and gray. All that Rabbit had left was a hole, a deep, dark hole. And I'm going to pause our story there again, and Nick is going to finish the other story. What's going to happen, right? We're going to find out.
I have some volunteers who are going to help us with this next reading. Just as a reminder to those volunteers, if you had an odd number, you were coming forward to that music mic. If you had an even number, you were coming here. This is that time to go ahead and do so in your order. We have Bonnie starting us off, and
We're not sure what happened, but we know what it's like when someone appears whose message we feel offers hope, who inspires us with new ways of living.
We know what it's like when they fall short of our expectations, or worse, when they are cut down by the forces of hate and bigotry.
We're not sure what happened, but we know what it's like when someone has grown profoundly into our own lives, who seems as much a part of our living as our own breathing.
We know what it is like when death takes from us, perhaps prematurely, and the empty place now in our souls, it's much like an empty tomb.
We're not sure what happened, but we know what it's like to feel sorrow and loss, despair and grief. We know the waves of tears and the thoughts of the past which flow through us.
We know that memories and stories begin to fill the emptiness. Our lives are shored up with a different presence which will live with us all our lives.
Thank you, sir. We're not sure what happened, but we know what it's like to realize, to have it dawn upon us, that what we have known and loved lives on with us and within us forever, a part of who we are.
We know that somehow in our hearts and souls resurrection is real, not that of the body, but of the spirit, a spirit renewed, even reborn, in the midst of our lives and our living.
We're not sure what happened, but we know there is a difficult hope of faith that through whatever sorrow or grief we are feeling, there's also a growing sense of grace and gratitude, of joy and thanksgiving in the mysterious and abiding astonishment of being human.
In this wonder, may we find strength in our own sense of Easter.
Thank you to our volunteers for reading We Don't Know What Happened by Daniel Budd. Now, our story is going to end for now. Let us return, though, and finish this first story, kind of. After the teacher died, his followers were very upset. They gathered together, as many of us do after someone we love dies. As they gathered, they shared stories and talked about his teachings. The women who had been among his followers continued to go back to the tomb to care for the body, as was their tradition. But one morning, they returned to the tomb, and they found that the boulder that had been rolled in front of it had been moved. There are different stories about what happened next, including different stories in the books that have been written about the teacher. Some believe that his body was stolen. Some people believe that he came back to life. Some people just don't know. But regardless of what you believe, Easter is the day where we remember how the teacher, who was named Jesus, died. It is also the day where we remember what happened after he died, when all those people who were sharing stories and teachings decided to continue sharing his stories and teachings. Those people created many Jesus movements. Some of them became called Christians, some of them became Unitarians, and some of them became Universalists. And some of them created other religions. But all of them wanted to continue sharing the teacher's wisdom. They were inspired and intrigued by the stories he told and how he helped people understand things in new ways and find more love and courage. They loved how he cared for the people, how he cared for the poor and for those who were most vulnerable. They admired how he loved all people and believed in working for justice for everyone. And so we keep telling the story. And when we tell the story, we keep noticing how it inspires us to live. So ends the Easter story, for now.
And so, while that story is done for now, we still need to finish rabbitiness. And so we're going to come back to where those rabbits had found just a deep, dark hole. But down the deep, dark hole, Rabbit had left them some gifts. There were lots of things to make color and music. In time, all the rabbits discovered that they liked doing unrabbity things too. They liked splashing and playing music. And this made them think of Rabbit, which made them happy. In fact, this made them so happy, they filled the woods with color and music once again. And that is the end. You're right. You guessed it. Good job.
Our reading today is Love Brings Us Back to Life by Reverend Peggy Clark. Easter is a holiday of miracles. It is life from death, joy from sorrow, celebration from mourning. Easter reminds us that all is never lost, that the story continues as long as we are here to tell it. So gather up your worries. Today we bury them beneath the ground and watch them transform into flowers of hope, pushing through the earth, reminding us on this Easter morning that love brings us back to life, calls us from sadness, from grief, from anxiety, into a world renewed and alive and filled with joy once again.
So Easter, as you know, contains the story of the teacher of Jesus' death, and that is important. It is always important to remember great injustices and the evils that humans do to each other. It is important to remember rightly and to acknowledge and feel our grief, anger, desperation, and hopelessness. We cannot move into something better and more just, resisting and dismantling old systems of oppression and creating new systems of justice if we do not remember injustices and evils rightly and acknowledge our grief, anger, desperation, and hopelessness. But while the Easter story contains the story of Jesus' death, it is a celebration of the power of courage over fear, of creativity and perseverance over the powers that try to silence oppressed voices, of faith and hope over doubt, and of love over hate, indifference, and death. It is a celebration of what came after the murder of one great prophetic man. It is a celebration of people telling stories and creating movements that caused many of Jesus' teachings to live on. Movements that taught about liberation, community, covenant, and caring for the marginalized and oppressed. It's a celebration of choosing the stories we tell, of remembering that before his death, Jesus called his disciples to continue his work, not to mourn him. That he called people to keep on telling stories even in the hard times, to keep on sharing their lives, to keep on caring for one another, to keep on noticing wonder all around us, to keep on resisting the forces that seek to dehumanize us and grind us down. Because no matter what we think happened to Jesus after his death, the story of Easter is the story of people rising up, people springing forth as life springs forth from the cold, once frozen earth. It is the story of people choosing to say that these hateful words, these laws that try to erase the existence of some people and say that some of us are not fully human and deserving of the same civil rights as others, these are not the final word. Easter is the story of voices rising up and telling powerful stories that spread courage and hope. Easter is the story of us resurrecting joy and wonder and creativity and love in our lives. It is the story of us choosing love and hope when all seems lost, and coming together with others to pull them into, to build them into our lives and into the world. It is about the power we all have to resurrect joy and hope and connection in our lives. It is about the power that we have to work together to cultivate them in the world. And it is a story that grows and spreads fecundly, profoundly, year after year. Easter is a celebration that invites us to ask, in the words of Valerie Carr, what if this darkness that we find ourselves in is not the darkness of a tomb, but the darkness of a womb? What if something new is being birthed in this time, just as the springtime of the world around us is birthing new life in the leaf buds popping open and the flowers beginning to burst forth from the earth? What if part of what is being birthed is new ways of creating community, new ways of recognizing that we are all connected, new ways of celebrating wonder, joy, and creativity, new ways of living love loudly and boldly and fiercely into this world, new ways that are really old ways. And so today, as we celebrate Easter, as we awaken to love in the world once again, may we commit to being part of justice movements in the coming year. Because Easter is a celebration of how the movements for liberation, community, covenant, and caring for people who are marginalized and oppressed live on in the variety and wonder and beauty and joy and creativity of humanity today. It's a celebration of what love calls us to. These movements of resistance, of living love fully and fiercely into the world, they don't stop. They continue on as long as people invest and engage in them. Today, there is great need in the world, and there is great love in the world. There is great love that asks us how we will engage with the injustices of our times, that asks us how we will care for those who are poor, sick, oppressed, and how we will care for the earth. We can each respond to that call. That response shows itself in different ways for different people, and it requires discernment to know what we are called to in this moment, what we are called to do to bless the world. We are living into that discernment, that courage, that love together right now in this congregation as we create new spaces. As we move into the days and weeks and months that follow Easter, may we help movements for love and justice unfold and thereby live out the most important lessons of Easter. Amen, and blessed be.
How we give, what we do with our lives, our time, and our resources is a reflection of our values. In response to the abundance we are blessed with, every week this congregation donates generously to organizations in the community whose work aligns with our values and principles. Our community partner agency this month is Table to Table, which builds connections between abundance and hunger by collecting edible food that would go to waste. The food goes to a network of hunger and relief partners assisting our most vulnerable neighbors. In the sanctuary, the ushers will collect the offering, or you can follow the instructions on the screen for how to give online. All cash contributions go directly to our community partner agency. In addition to assisting our community partner, you may contribute towards your pledge to our society or contribute to the congregation to provide additional support for our operating expenses. You may also contribute by check using the memo line to designate the purpose. The offering is a sign of commitment to this free congregation, which is almost completely supported by the generosity of all who join with us. As we give and receive the offering, may we be transformed by our giving, and may the world be transformed by our gifts. May what has been shared today help us more fully affirm our interconnection and live into love and justice. Immediately after the service, we will have time for all to join in conversation and community. If you're online, a link to the Zoom coffee hour rooms is available in the description below the video on YouTube. If you're in person, we gather in the fellowship hall for conversation. If you want to participate in the egg hunt, please meet Nick in the RE Commons for instructions over here. Younger children will need to have an adult accompany them. Our discussion questions today, which you may want to chat about during coffee hour, are: what stories are you telling? How are they helping you bring joy, hope, and love into the world? And now to close our service today, we'll sing hymn 270, Please Rise in Body and Spirit as You're Able. Sorry, did I take your line?
All right. Yes, this one, if you're looking in the hymnal at number 270, the music and the words are the same. So you can read the music on this one if you read music. Otherwise, the words are up here on the screen, so you can follow along on that. So let's sing together, O Day of Light and Gladness. O day of light and gladness, of prophecy and song, what thoughts within us waken, what hallowed memories throng. The soul's horizon widens, past, present, future blend, and rises in our vision the life that has no end. Earth feels the season's joyance, from mountain range to sea. The tides of life are flowing, fresh, manifold, and free. In valley and on upland, by forest pathways dim, all nature lifts its chorus, the resurrection hymn. O dawn of life eternal, to thee our hearts upraise. The Easter song of gladness, the Passover of praise. Thine are the many mansions, the dead die not to thee, who fillest from thy fullness time and eternity. Thank you.
Please join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again.
As you go out into the world today and in the days ahead, may you go telling the stories and doing the work that helps you bring more joy, hope, and love into this world. Go in peace, love, and justice, living love more fully and fiercely into the world. Amen. And blessed be.
So if this is a new experience for you, our blessing song, you're welcome to stick with one thing. Easy peasy. You can go, Amen, let it be so. If you've done this 100 times now, you can be more adventurous and try something else. We also have things like, blessed be. Those are things I made up. I made up also Ashe, a word of blessing. Ashe, 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 Ashe. Or do a word that you have. All right? Make up your own melody. Do one that we do. All are great. All are possible. Thank you, Shinhui. Amen. Let it be so. Amen. Let it be so. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be, blessed be. Ashe, 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 Ashe. Ashe, 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 Ashe. Amen. Let it be so.
Amen.